Okay, so three different scenarios, each demonstrating faith. Once again, three different scenarios, each demonstrating faith. We're going to ask a couple questions here, and in a follow-up video, we'll answer them and then discuss them. If you haven't already seen my video on what is faith, I would suggest that you watch that one before we go through this. So just type in the YouTube "What is Faith" by J2. That's the letter J and the number 2. What is Faith by J2. Watch that, then come back to this. So let's continue. Three different scenarios, three different demonstrations of faith. We're going to take a look at them, see how they're different, how they're similar, and what their faith is in. All right. So let's begin. I'm going to start first with a passage from the beginning of the Bible, Genesis 3, 1 to 6. I'm just going to read it for you guys. It says, "Now the serpent was more crafty than any other of the wild animals the Lord had made. He said to the woman, 'Did God really say you must not eat of any tree in the garden?' The woman said to the serpent, 'We may eat the fruit from the trees in the garden, but God did say you must not eat the fruit from the tree that is in the middle of the garden, and you must not touch it, or you will die.'" Verse 4. "You will not surely die," the serpent said to the woman, "for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye, and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and ate it. She also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it. So that's the first scripture. That's once again Genesis 3 from 1 to 6. And the question in the first scripture is, where in there is Eve's faith and then Adam's faith? So answer that question. Once again, I'm going to do a follow-up video. I'm going to go through it in detail, but I want you to answer the question by yourself. Where in that passage have they placed their faith? Second passage, John chapter 5, verse 2 to 9. That's John in the New Testament, the fourth gospel, chapter 5, verse 2 to 9. Let's take a read. "Now there in Jerusalem near the sheep gate, sorry, now there is in Jerusalem near the sheep gate a pool which in Aramaic is called Bethsaida, and which is surrounded by 5 covered colonnades. Here a great number of disabled people used to lie, the blind, the lame, and the paralyzed. One who was there had been an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, 'Do you want to get well?' 'Sir,' the invalid said, 'I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I'm trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me.' Then Jesus said to him, 'Get up, pick up your mat and walk.' At once the man was cured. He picked up his mat and he walked. The day on which this took place was the Sabbath." So that's the second scripture. Once again, John chapter 5 from 2 to 9. In that scripture, not Jesus, where does the person who they describe as the invalid place his trust? Go through it and identify where or in what that person places his trust initially. That's the second scripture. The third scripture we're going to look at to wrap it up is Mark chapter 5, verse 25 to 29. So that's the second gospel, Mark chapter 5 as well, but from 25 to 29. This one is really interesting. So let's go through this one. Starting, it says, "A large crowd followed and pressed around him, and a woman was there who was subject to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors, and had spent all she had. Yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak." Verse 28. "Because she thought, 'If I just touch his clothes, I will be healed.'" Verse 29. "Immediately her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering." So that's the third and final passage we're going to look at today. It's Mark 5, 25 to 29. Once again, back to back to back. These are three passages that show faith of the people we're talking about, or the people discussed there in something. We want to compare and contrast what the faith was placed in. So the first one, just again for recap, is Genesis 3, verse 1 to 6. Read through that. see where even Adam placed their faith. Then read through John 5 from verse 2 to verse 9 and see where the invalid placed his faith initially. And then read Mark 5 verse 25 to 29 and see where the woman with the issue of blood, the bleeding, where she placed her faith. Once again, I'm going to do another video, a little video presentation, just discussing it. Once again, even before you start this to research and look around, I would recommend that you watch my video on faith. It's called What is Faith? Just type in What is Faith by J2 and then look at this. And then coming soon is going to be the discussion, the full follow-up discussion video about these three scenarios and what it actually means to go through these. Now, it's going to be a fantastic discussion. I look forward to it. But yeah, just put your comments. What do you think the faith or these people's faith was placed in? All right. Look forward to hearing your responses and getting the other video out there.